don't know who I'm addressing, but I can say that it absolutely does. And I believe that I've already addressed this per se, that it really does work after 9/11. Didn't see many differences other than some information got classified. President Bush did something, though, that maybe you haven't heard about when it comes to U.S. secrecy, but it's not what you think. Stay tuned. I'll tell you a little bit about it when we return right here on the Black Vault Radio. Welcome back to the Black Vault Radio. I'm John Greenewald Jr., and I'm taking your questions from the mailbag that come in the last few weeks. Decided to devote a whole show here on the Black Vault Radio to your letters, your questions, what you want to know, where I'm not limited to a couple-minute interview on some of the shows that I know some of you have heard, or maybe you might want to hit them on the show archives after you listen to this show here. But before the break, I can't believe it's already the bottom of the hour. I'm not even a quarter of a way through your questions. Little did I know. I thought, maybe these questions aren't going to fill an hour. Little did I know. Well, an anonymous question came in about the Freedom of Information Act doesn't work anymore after 9/11. Well, yes, it absolutely does. I've received tens of thousands of pages since 9/11. But also I believe it was last year, President Bush signed an executive order that you guys may not have heard about that actually instructed and enforced that agencies across the federal system were to kind of renew their vows, so to speak, with the Freedom of Information Act. He's pushing them to decrease what we call the FOIA case log, Freedom of Information Act case log, which is that big database of requests that have come in that the agencies still consider open, they have yet to respond to, and President Bush is trying to better that situation. He's trying to get the agencies to decrease that load, to make sure that the citizens are happy with the information they're getting. And that's really what that executive order was doing, and I think that was a pretty cool thing to do, to be quite honest with you. It was one of the best things I've heard from his administration about the Freedom of Information Act, and quite possibly it's the only thing that you'll hear about from this administration on the Freedom of Information Act. And then the last big news with the Freedom of Information Act, at least in my eyes anyway, was during the Clinton administration when he signed the Electronic Freedom of Information Act, which again opened up many new avenues for requesting and receiving the information. So with that being said, you may not have heard about that. Of course, that's not on the nightly news, but something else to make him look bad. Now, I'm not going to turn this into a political statement. I'm just saying that the media, of course, doesn't really profile the good things. They only profile the bad. But that is a show all in itself. Sandra Simmons from Washington, D.C., one of my favorite places. And also, pretty much the same question came in from Black Vault member SRO. Why are they here? Sandra says, being in the nation's capital. I think of the question, quote, why don't they land on the White House lawn? Although it is a bit cliche, why don't they? Question mark. Well, thank you, Sandra, for your question. Of course, being in Washington, D.C., I'm sure you think about that question a lot and dealing with the UFO topic. Now, why don't the aliens land on the White House lawn? Yes, it is a little bit cliche. I have heard that question many, many times, pretty much put the same way. And I can only offer my personal opinion. I really don't know if aliens, quote-unquote, extraterrestrials, are here, they're above us. I've devoted pretty much the majority of my life to researching this phenomenon, but I really haven't seen anything, and I personally need to see to believe. But let's assume, for the purpose of this question, that they are absolutely real. They are here, they are visiting, they are above our skies, and we can barely capture them on video without it being all jerky or blurry, or we can barely capture them on a photograph without it being, is that a bug? Or, there's no real clear, again, using the term smoking gun, out there that proves that they're there. But why don't they just come down and land on the White House lawn? Well, my theory is this. If they are an advanced civilization, if they are a species that have evolved in somewhat a similar fashion to us, if the Big Bang Theory is 100% true and scientific fact, and we all kind of evolve in the same way or a fairly similar way, Let's say that they had a 10,000 year head start or a 100,000 year head start. Well, that's nothing in space-time. It's probably in reality more like a 1,000,000 year head start or a 5,000,000 year head start. Now let's compare it to our civilization. Look in the last 100 years in our evolution. How far has our technology come? It's amazing. Look at the last 50. It's amazing. Even in the last 15, it is astounding. I can say that when I started programming websites, you couldn't even program a background into a web page. That's how I was. I think I was 12 when I started doing that. And by the way, America Online was version 1.0 for DOS. And I don't like advertising that too much, but that is when I started using the internet. Thanks to my grandma. I miss her dearly, who passed away in 2000, I believe, the end of 2000. And she's the one that really taught me the beginning stages of the internet and got me into this. Anyway, you look at that technology and you look at where that's gone in the last decade. It is amazing. Now, again, okay, back to this alien civilization. If they have now the technology to get here, would they land on the White House lawn? Would we? Would we be able to do space travel in the next 100 years, or the next 1,000 years? Yeah, I absolutely think that our species absolutely could. Now, again, comparing the two civilizations, so to say, that have evolved in two separate areas, look at what they could accomplish if they had that 1,000,000-year head start. Look at what they can undoubtedly do. I mean, look again, you compare it to ours, even if they're half the pace, they're still, forgive the pun, but light years beyond our technology. Okay, now with that being said, again, using that a comparison analogy, if we were able to go back in time, if we were able to look back and see how our ancient ancestors lived, would we go down and bonk them on the head and say, hey, we're watching you? Now, for those of you who heard the Adam Carolla interview, I got cut off when I was trying to make this analogy because I confused one of the hosts of the show. And then she thought I was absolutely a moron and then put me down, and that was it, although Adam Carolla did come to my defense, so I appreciated that. However, I'll finish the thought. If we were able to look back in time and we were able to see how we formed, which in essence, again, using that Big Bang Theory, using a civilization that's 1,000,000 years ahead of us, if we are evolving in somewhat of a similar way, they, in essence, are looking back in time. Maybe they didn't go back 1,000,000 years, no. But scientifically, they're looking at how their civilization may have been 1,000,000 years prior. Using that comparison, would they come down and knock us on the head? No, absolutely not. Because again, if we were looking at that caveman and we wanted to learn, would we go down and talk to him? No. Because in his current state, he couldn't handle such a, oh my God, there's this civilization that's looking at us. They're watching us. No, they wouldn't even be able to form that thought. And it would have screwed up that natural progression, that natural evolutionary process that was taking place. And I truly believe that if they are here, if they are above our heads and they're looking down for a reason. And that reason is not to interact with us. It's not to even disturb us. It's to learn. Now, who knows? Maybe they had some kind of nuclear holocaust of their own. Maybe they almost wiped out their civilization. Maybe even they just have zero written record about what they were like 1,000,000 years ago, and they're just up there taking notes. Who knows? But I truly believe that is probably the most plausible reason on why they don't come down and land on the White House lawn, especially on the White House lawn. So Sandra and SRO and a few other questions that came in very similar to this. Thank you for that. I hope that my analogy made a little bit of sense. It's hard to explain, but when you sit down and really think about it, it does make sense. And I think that the plausibility of the extraterrestrial existence and them being here is incredibly plausible when you look at and compare our evolution, our advances in science, and that head start that they may get. And then I think the UFO reality and that UFO existence really doesn't seem as far off as maybe the media makes jokes about, or some skeptic, if you want to call him that, will make fun of.